Have you ever looked at a pile of rocks or fallen twigs and thought, this is just trash? What if I told you that with a little imagination, those forgotten scraps could transform into borders, patios, and backyard art pieces that feel timeless? Today on ModHaus DIY, we're uncovering 15 rustic fairy garden ideas that recycle the simplest materials into something magical for your summer garden. This video comes with timestamps, so you can explore the sections that inspire you most. And if you have questions or want to share your own ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Before we begin, let me share something personal. Maybe to you, I'm just another face on a screen. But behind this content is a real family with a real dream. Every like, every comment, every subscribe, it truly matters. When you hit that subscribe button, you're not just helping a creator grow. You're keeping a dream alive. You're giving hope, one click at a time. Thank you for being here, and thank you for seeing me. Now, let's turn trash into treasure together. There is something magical about turning ordinary stones into cheerful guardians of the garden. Imagine walking through a small backyard on a bright summer morning. Instead of plain, gray rocks marking the edge of the flower bed, you find a playful row of pumpkins, each one glowing with bright orange paint and leafy green swirls. The sight feels as though autumn has arrived early, yet the warmth of summer sunlight makes them even more vibrant. This idea is more than just decoration. It's a perfect blend of recycling, creativity, and garden function. Big, smooth stones that once sat unnoticed at the corner of the yard suddenly become eye-catching borders. With a simple brush, a splash of outdoor paint, and a little patience, they transform into tiny works of art. Their weight makes them steady against the soil, and their rounded shape adds charm to both flower beds and vegetable patches. The process is wonderfully simple. First, gather large stones with smooth surfaces. River rocks are ideal. Wash them well and let them dry under the sun. Next, choose strong outdoor acrylic paint in shades of orange, green, and maybe a touch of yellow for highlights. Begin with a solid orange base coat, then add soft curves and lines to mimic the ridges of a real pumpkin. A small detail, a painted leaf, or even a curling vine makes the design feel alive. Seal the paint with a clear protective coat, and suddenly your garden edging becomes weatherproof, ready to last through seasons. Children adore helping with this project, brushing bright colors onto rocks while parents add the finishing details. Once placed along a garden border or patio edge, these painted pumpkins create a warm invitation to the eye. They bring a smile to anyone passing by and remind us that even the simplest materials, rocks beneath our feet, can become joyful decorations. In the end, these pumpkin rock borders are not only cheap and durable, but also a celebration of imagination. They whisper to visitors, this garden is loved, this space is cared for, and here, creativity finds a home. As twilight falls over a small garden, a warm glow begins to dance along the fence. At first glance, it looks like a row of pumpkins floating in the evening air, their cheerful faces glowing softly. But step closer, and you realize these lanterns are not carved from real pumpkins. They are reborn from ordinary plastic bottles. This is where upcycling shows its true beauty. Trash turned into treasure that not only lights the night, but also brings joy to everyone who sees it. Plastic bottles, once destined for the bin, gain a new life as charming pumpkin lanterns. Painted in vibrant orange and topped with a leafy green accent, they take on the playful look of tiny pumpkins. Cut-out eyes, noses, or simple swirling patterns allow light to shine through, creating patterns that dance across fences, patios, and garden walls. The making process is surprisingly simple and inexpensive. Start by collecting medium-sized plastic bottles. Cut a window or pattern into each, keeping the shapes simple so the structure remains strong. Paint the outside with bright orange acrylic paint, adding green on the bottle's neck to mimic a pumpkin stem. Once the paint dries, place a small LED tea light or string light inside. Avoid real candles for safety, as plastic can melt. The result is a lantern that glows safely and beautifully, ready to brighten any evening. These pumpkin lanterns are especially enchanting in tiny yards or small gardens, where a little touch of light can transform the space. Hanging them on a fence, placing them on patio tables, or stringing them across a pergola adds both decoration and function. Their cheerful glow invites laughter, conversation, and a sense of festivity, even when no special occasion is planned. What makes them unforgettable is the contrast, something so ordinary and disposable turned into something magical. It reminds us that creativity requires only imagination and a willingness to see beauty where others see waste. Each glowing pumpkin lantern whispers the same promise, that with a little care, even trash can become a source of warmth and wonder. In the heart of a small garden, sometimes the simplest materials create the most enchanting beauty. Imagine a fence made not of heavy boards or costly metal, but of twigs gathered from fallen branches, woven and bent into the gentle curves of pumpkins. Each panel becomes both art and structure, a rustic frame that guides the eye while protecting tender plants within. These twig pumpkin fence panels carry the spirit of recycling and upcycling in its purest form. No new lumber, no expensive materials, only what nature has already given. Twigs, once scattered across the ground, are now lifted, shaped, and tied into something purposeful. Their irregular textures and earthy tones bring authenticity that cannot be bought, turning a tiny yard or small garden into a scene that feels hand-touched and loved. Crafting them is a joyful process. Begin by collecting sturdy twigs of similar thickness. Soak them briefly in water or leave them in damp grass so they bend without breaking. Using a simple frame, bend the twigs into circular outlines resembling pumpkins, securing them with wire or jute rope. For added strength, weave smaller twigs across the frame, filling the shape until it looks rustic and full. Once complete, attach each panel to short stakes or directly into the soil, creating a border that can line flower beds, vegetable patches, or even frame a patio. The charm of these panels lies in their adaptability. Some gardeners leave them plain, letting the natural wood weather to a soft silver gray. Others paint them with a touch of orange or green, making the pumpkin forms more vivid. Over time, small climbing plants like sweet peas or nasturtiums can weave through the gaps, turning the fence into a living tapestry of wood and leaf. Placed along a backyard edge or around a tiny vegetable patch, these twig pumpkin fences feel both protective and playful. They bring character to the garden without overpowering it, quietly reminding us that beauty often comes from the overlooked. Each panel whispers of patience, of hands that shaped simple sticks into symbols of growth and harvest. There is a quiet delight in edging a garden not with stone or wood, but with rows of cheerful little pots. Imagine stepping into a small backyard and seeing a border lined with mini pumpkins. Yet upon closer look, you realize they are pots, painted bright orange, each alive with its own tiny bloom or herb. It is a garden edging that feels both whimsical and purposeful, transforming the edges of pathways, flower beds, and patios into spaces of color and charm. The beauty of this idea lies in its flexibility. Small terracotta or plastic pots can be easily found, often at very little cost. With a coat of orange paint and a dab of green on the rim to mimic a pumpkin stem, they take on a playful form. Some gardeners keep them empty, letting their shape alone provide decoration. Others fill them with soil and plant summer favorites, marigolds, pansies, or even fragrant herbs like thyme and rosemary. The result is a living border that changes with the seasons, offering both structure and variety. Creating these edging pots is simple. Begin with a clean pot, scrub away dirt, and allow it to dry. Use outdoor paint in orange shades, layering until the color is rich and bright. Add simple curved lines with a darker shade to mimic the ridges of a pumpkin. Once painted, let them dry completely and consider sealing with a clear coat for durability. Place the pots along the garden edge, close together for a solid border or slightly spaced for a lighter feel. The charm of mini pumpkin pot edging is how easily it adapts. In tiny yards, they make a small garden feel playful and alive. On patios, they frame sitting areas with bursts of color. In vegetable patches, they separate herbs from greens while adding personality. Because they are movable, they can be rearranged anytime, letting the garden evolve without permanent change. Above all, these borders remind us that even small details can transform a space. A row of painted pots is not just edging. It's an invitation to smile, to stop for a moment, and to see joy in the simple act of planting. As daylight softens and the sky shifts into shades of twilight, something magical begins to glow in the garden. Lining the edges of a patio or hanging gently from a fence, pumpkin-shaped jars filled with fairy lights turn ordinary glass into beacons of warmth and wonder. Their soft orange glow spills across the garden, wrapping the night in comfort and playfulness. This idea is as charming as it is practical, born from the simple act of reusing old jars. Instead of tossing them away, each jar is painted in a rich pumpkin orange, with gentle brush strokes creating the ridges of a real pumpkin. When a string of tiny fairy lights is tucked inside, the jar comes alive, its glow dancing across leaves, pathways, and walls. With no fire, no smoke, and no risk, these lights are safe for every backyard, whether large or small. Making them requires little more than creativity and patience. Start with clean glass jars of any size, mason jars, jam jars, or even tall drink bottles. Paint the outside with orange acrylic paint, leaving thin gaps or shapes for the light to shine through. Add details like green stems or curling vines at the lid for a whimsical touch. Once dry, place a small battery-powered string of fairy lights inside. The moment the switch clicks, the transformation is complete. Trash has become treasure, and the garden has found its glow. Placed along a path, these jars guide guests gently through a small garden. On a patio, they create intimacy, casting a warm glow that makes even a simple evening feel special. Hung along fences or from tree branches, they shimmer like little lanterns, giving tiny yards a festival-like charm without needing elaborate decor. What makes these pumpkin fairy light jars unforgettable is their balance of simplicity and magic. Anyone can make them, and everyone can enjoy them. They prove that creativity thrives not in buying, but in transforming. When the night falls and the jars light up, they speak quietly of imagination, of joy in the humble, and of the beauty found when light meets color in the garden's heart. Every garden path tells a story, and sometimes the smallest touches make the biggest difference. Imagine stepping into a backyard where the walkway doesn't just guide your feet, it delights your eyes. Along the edges, large rocks painted like pumpkins shine with cheerful color, their orange curves and green swirls transforming a simple path into something festive and welcoming. This is the magic of upcycling. Stones that once sat forgotten in the soil become bright, playful markers that celebrate both creativity and the beauty of nature. Unlike store-bought borders, these painted pumpkins feel personal, carrying the warmth of handmade care. The path becomes not just a walkway, but an experience, a small journey framed by art. The process begins with gathering large, smooth rocks, ones sturdy enough to line a path. After a good scrub and drying, each stone is painted with bold orange acrylic, layer upon layer until the color glows. Details like ridges, stripes, or leafy green accents bring each pumpkin to life. For extra durability, a weatherproof sealant keeps the colors vivid through rain and shine. Once finished, the stones are placed along both sides of a gravel or mulch path, guiding steps like a trail of cheerful lanterns. In small gardens and tiny yards, this idea works especially well. It adds structure without heaviness, playfulness without clutter. Children love the bright colors, and guests can't help but smile as they follow the pumpkin-lined trail. The edging can lead to a patio, a vegetable patch, or simply a quiet corner where a bench waits beneath a tree. The beauty lies not only in the final look, but in the freedom to play. No two stones need be the same. Each can carry its own character, its own pattern. Together, they create a rhythm of color that feels alive. And each time you walk the path, you're reminded that joy often grows not from buying new, but from reimagining the old. In the glow of summer sun, the colorful pumpkin rock path whispers of laughter, creativity, and the timeless pleasure of walking through a garden that is truly your own. Sometimes a fence can feel like nothing more than a barrier, a line between spaces. But with a little creativity, even the plainest fence can become a gallery of charm. Picture a row of bright pumpkins, some small, some large, dangling playfully from wooden boards. Their orange shapes catch the sunlight, turning a simple fence into a cheerful backdrop for the garden. This is the essence of DIY upcycling, using what we already have to create something that sparks joy. Old plastic bottles, glass jars, or even tin cans can be transformed into pumpkin hangings with just a bit of paint and imagination. Strung together with rustic rope or twine, they sway in the breeze, adding movement and color to small gardens and tiny yards. Making them is refreshingly easy. Start by cleaning your chosen material. Bottles work especially well for their rounded shape. Paint them with bold orange acrylic, layering until the color shines. Add green details at the top to mimic stems and vines. Once dry, drill or cut small holes near the rim and loop through rope or wire. The hangings can then be tied directly to a fence or hung from hooks for a more adjustable display. These decorations shine in their versatility. A row of small pumpkin hangings looks like a festive garland, perfect for edging a patio fence. Larger pieces hung in clusters create a playful art wall in the backyard. For those who love evening gatherings, placing small LED lights inside jars turns the pumpkins into glowing lanterns, spreading warm light across the garden. What makes this idea especially powerful is its impact in small spaces. Even in a tiny yard, a fence is usually present, and decorating it instantly changes the mood. It shifts the garden from plain to personal, from barrier to backdrop. And because the pumpkins are made from recycled materials, the project is inexpensive, eco-friendly, and endlessly customizable. Every time you look at the fence, the pumpkins remind you that creativity can flourish anywhere. They whisper that joy doesn't require big budgets or big yards, only a willingness to see treasure in what others call trash. Few ideas bring recycling and gardening together as beautifully as pumpkin bottle planters. What was once destined for the trash, a simple plastic bottle, suddenly becomes the home of new life. Painted in bright pumpkin orange, each planter feels playful, festive, and full of purpose. Lined along a fence or stacked in a corner, they transform any small garden or patio into a burst of color and greenery. The process begins with something nearly everyone has at hand: empty bottles. Cut them carefully across the side, leaving an opening large enough to hold soil and plants. Drill small drainage holes at the bottom to keep roots healthy. Then comes the fun, the transformation. With a brush and outdoor acrylic paint, cover the bottle in bold orange, adding green accents at the neck to create the illusion of a pumpkin stem. Suddenly, the bottle no longer looks like trash. It looks like a pumpkin ready to grow something new. Fill the planters with soil and choose what to plant. For tiny yards, herbs such as basil, parsley, or mint thrive in the small space. For those who love flowers, marigolds, petunias, or daisies bring lively color. Even succulents and trailing ivy look enchanting, their shapes spilling over the edges of the pumpkins. Once planted, the bottles can be hung with rope, nailed onto fences, or arranged in rows on a patio wall. The joy of pumpkin bottle planters lies in their adaptability. They turn vertical space into a garden, making them ideal for small yards or balconies where ground space is scarce. They are cheap to create, eco-friendly, and strong enough to last through seasons with just a bit of care. And because each planter is hand-painted, no two are the same. Each carries a touch of the maker's personality. Standing in a garden framed by these pumpkin planters, you feel a sense of playfulness and pride. They remind you that gardening isn't only about growing plants, it's about growing ideas. With every bright orange bottle that holds fresh green life, the garden whispers, beauty doesn't come from what we buy, but from what we choose to imagine. At the edge of a garden, where path meets patio or fence opens to flowers, an arch can change everything. Not a grand metal gate or a heavy stone frame, but something humbler, an arch woven from twigs, shaped into the gentle curve of a pumpkin. It rises like a doorway to a place of wonder, rustic and inviting, handmade from what nature has already given. These rustic twig pumpkin arches are both practical and poetic. They mark the entrance to a garden while offering a frame for climbing plants to flourish. Twigs, collected from pruned branches or fallen wood, are bent carefully into curves, tied together with rope or wire until they resemble the rounded outline of a pumpkin. The result is not rigid perfection, but something more natural, organic lines that echo the growth of vines themselves. Creating such an arch is a satisfying project. Begin by gathering sturdy twigs, preferably from flexible species like willow or grapevine. Form two side panels by bending twigs into half circles, then join them at the top to create the arch. Secure the joints with natural jute rope for a rustic look, or thin metal wire for added strength. For larger arches, anchor the bases into the soil with stakes or bury them slightly to keep them steady. Once built, the arch is ready to host life. Plant climbing flowers at the base, morning glories, sweet peas, nasturtiums, or even small gourds that echo the pumpkin form. Over time, the plants will weave themselves into the twigs, turning the arch into a living sculpture that shifts with the seasons. In tiny yards and small gardens, these arches create a sense of depth and discovery. They guide guests from one space to another, making even the smallest backyard feel layered and full of character. At night, strands of fairy lights can be wound through the twigs, making the arch glow softly under the stars. Standing beneath a rustic twig pumpkin arch, you feel the gentle blend of creativity and nature. It is a reminder that beauty doesn't always come from perfection, but from the courage to shape the simple into something extraordinary. There is a quiet magic in the way candlelight transforms a space. On a summer evening, a patio or backyard can feel ordinary until the glow of soft light brings it alive. Imagine that light shining not from store-bought lanterns, but from handmade pumpkin candle holders, crafted out of bottles, jars, or even tin cans once destined for the trash. These holders are proof that creativity thrives in simplicity. Old containers are painted in bright pumpkin orange, with details of green stems and subtle ridges to give them shape. When a small LED candle is placed inside, the humble material glows warmly, its flicker turning plastic or tin into something festive and enchanting, making them as both inexpensive and fun. Begin with any small container: plastic bottles cut in half, glass jars cleaned of their labels, or empty tin cans. Paint the outside with orange acrylic, layering until the color is rich. For jars and cans, consider cutting or carving simple patterns, stars, swirls, or even little pumpkin faces that allow light to shine through. Once dry, place a tea light or LED candle inside. In just minutes, you've created a glowing ornament strong enough to last through many evenings. Their versatility is what makes them special. Lined along a garden border, they create a glowing edge that feels like a trail of tiny pumpkins guiding your steps. Clustered on a patio table, they make even a casual drink with friends feel like a celebration. Hung from hooks on a fence, they sway gently, scattering shadows across flowers and walls. For small gardens and tiny yards, these candle holders are a gift. They add atmosphere without taking up space. And because they're made from recycled materials, they cost almost nothing. More importantly, they remind us that beauty does not always need to be bought. It can be shaped, painted, and lit with our own hands. When night falls and the candles glow, these pumpkin holders speak softly of warmth and creativity. They tell guests that this backyard is more than a space. It's a place where imagination burns as brightly as the light inside each handmade lantern. Sometimes the biggest treasures come from the most unlikely places. Picture an old trash can, dented and forgotten, waiting for disposal. But instead of being thrown away, it is reborn, painted pumpkin orange and filled with life. Standing proudly in the garden, it becomes not a container for waste, but a container for beauty. The pumpkin trash can planter is a perfect example of upcycling on a large scale. Its size makes it ideal for planting flowers, herbs, or even vegetables that need space to spread. Once painted, it looks cheerful and bold, a giant pumpkin holding a miniature garden within. Placed on a patio, along a fence, or at the corner of a backyard, it instantly becomes a statement piece, part decoration, part function. The process of transformation is straightforward. Begin by cleaning the trash can thoroughly and removing any rust or dirt. Paint the outside with layers of orange acrylic or outdoor spray paint until the color is rich. Add green vines, swirls, or even a stem-like detail at the lid to make the pumpkin design come alive. For durability, a clear weatherproof coat helps the planter withstand rain and sun. Then, drill small drainage holes at the bottom to keep plants healthy. Once ready, fill the can with soil and choose your plants. For flowers, marigolds, zinnias, or daisies thrive in such a large container, creating a burst of summer color. For those who prefer something edible, herbs like basil, mint, or parsley grow beautifully, while tomatoes or peppers can flourish with the space provided. What makes this planter special is its balance of whimsy and practicality. It brings a smile to anyone who sees it, while also serving as a sturdy and productive garden container. In small gardens, just one can transform the space into something unique. In larger backyards, a row of them can create a playful pumpkin border. The pumpkin trash can planter whispers of possibility, that even the most ordinary, overlooked item can hold beauty. It reminds us that creativity is not about having more, but about seeing differently. And when flowers spill from its rim or herbs overflow with fragrance, the message is clear: this garden is alive, and so is the imagination that shaped it. Old tires often end up forgotten, piled in corners, or sent away as waste. Yet with a splash of orange paint and a little imagination, they can return to life as cheerful pumpkin borders, both sturdy and full of character. Placed around flower beds, walkways, or patios, these tires bring playfulness and durability to any garden. The beauty of this idea lies in its strength. Tires are made to last against weather and wear, which makes them perfect for outdoor edging. When painted in pumpkin orange with green accents, they stop looking like trash and instead become bold, decorative frames for the garden. Their rounded curves echo the shape of real pumpkins, creating a natural charm that feels festive all year. The process begins simply. Wash and scrub the tires thoroughly to remove dirt. Once dry, coat them with outdoor acrylic or spray paint in layers of orange until the surface glows. Add details like ridges, green vines, or even painted leaves for a touch of whimsy. For edging, cut the tires in halves or quarters, then bury them slightly into the soil to stand upright and steady. For planters, leave them whole, stack them, and fill them with soil for a raised pumpkin-style container. The results are versatile. As borders, pumpkin tires can line vegetable patches, protecting delicate plants while guiding the eye neatly around the garden. Along walkways, they create a cheerful path that children especially love to follow. Stacked in corners, they can become vibrant mini planters overflowing with flowers, herbs, or trailing vines. For tiny yards and small gardens, this is a budget-friendly solution that maximizes both space and creativity. Instead of buying expensive edging, you turn what was once trash into something strong and eye-catching. Over time, the painted surfaces can be refreshed with another coat, keeping the pumpkins bright through many seasons. In the end, DIY pumpkin edging with tires is more than decoration. It's a reminder that what we discard still holds potential. Each orange curve tells the story of transformation, of waste reborn as beauty, and of gardens enriched by imagination as much as by soil. A fence can be more than a boundary. It can be a canvas. And with broken glass, discarded tiles, or old ceramic pieces, it can become a work of art. Imagine stepping into a backyard and seeing a wooden fence glowing with mosaic pumpkins, each one shimmering with color as sunlight strikes the glass. Suddenly, the fence is not just functional but festive, turning trash into timeless decoration. The charm of pumpkin mosaic fence art lies in both its durability and its creativity. Pieces of broken glass bottles, old dishes, or ceramic tiles, items usually considered useless, are transformed into bright orange and green fragments. When pieced together, they form playful pumpkin designs that look cheerful during the day and even more magical as evening light catches their edges. Creating such art takes patience, but no special tools beyond basics. Start by sketching the outline of a pumpkin directly onto the fence. Break glass or tiles into manageable pieces carefully with gloves and goggles, then arrange them along the lines. Use strong outdoor adhesive or mortar to secure each piece, working slowly until the design is filled in. For added protection, a thin coat of clear sealant keeps the mosaic safe from rain and weather. The beauty of this project is its freedom. Each pumpkin can be unique. One bright orange, another mixed with yellow and red, another accented with swirls of green. Together, they form a row of glowing patterns that make the fence feel alive. Some gardeners add fairy lights above or below the design, so at night the mosaic sparkles softly, creating a magical garden wall. For small gardens and tiny yards, this is especially effective. Space may be limited, but vertical surfaces like fences offer room for creativity. Instead of taking up ground space, the mosaic art rises vertically, adding color where none existed before. Standing before a fence decorated this way, you feel both pride and wonder. It is proof that beauty doesn't require new materials, only imagination and care. The pumpkin mosaics speak of renewal, of waste reborn as joy, and of a garden that celebrates not only plants but also the art of transformation. Not every garden has space for wide beds or sprawling vines. But even in the smallest yard, beauty can grow tall. Imagine a vertical frame, shaped and painted like a pumpkin, rising against a fence. Each tier holds plants, herbs, flowers, or vegetables, so that instead of spreading across the ground, the garden climbs upward in cheerful layers of orange and green. A pumpkin-inspired vertical garden is both playful and practical. Its pumpkin form brings charm and personality, while its vertical structure makes it ideal for small gardens, patios, or even balconies. By using height instead of width, it maximizes planting space in places where every inch matters. Building one begins with a simple frame. Recycled wood or pallets work wonderfully, cut and joined into a rounded outline that echoes a pumpkin's curves. Once built, the frame is painted with bold orange and accented with green details to emphasize its pumpkin character. Small pots or planter boxes can then be attached to each tier, creating rows of pockets for soil and plants. What to plant depends on the gardener's needs. For kitchens, herbs like basil, thyme, and parsley thrive in the upper pots, ready for harvest. For a splash of color, petunias, marigolds, or pansies can fill the lower tiers, spilling flowers over the edges. Even vegetables like lettuce, cherry tomatoes, or peppers grow happily in these small containers, making the vertical pumpkin not just decorative but productive. The vertical garden also becomes a statement piece. Against a fence, it turns an empty wall into a living painting. On a patio, it becomes both decoration and function, a conversation starter for guests. For tiny yards, it creates the feeling of abundance without taking up precious ground space. What makes it most powerful, however, is its message. It shows that gardening is not limited by space or by convention. Even with just a corner and some recycled wood, creativity can build something beautiful. The pumpkin-inspired vertical garden stands as proof. With imagination, small gardens can grow big dreams. At the edge of a garden, sometimes a single object can capture attention and spark joy. Picture a tall totem rising from the grass, made not of stone or metal, but of recycled bottles, cans, and rocks stacked together and painted like pumpkins. It glows with cheerful orange, dotted with green accents, standing like a guardian of the backyard. The backyard pumpkin totem is both decoration and statement. It celebrates creativity by transforming scraps into sculpture, and it transforms plain corners into playful focal points. Whether made tall with several stacked pumpkins or kept shorter with just 2 or 3, the totem brings height, color, and character into the garden. Creating one is simple but fun. Start by collecting sturdy recycled items, plastic bottles, old planters, or large round stones. Paint each piece pumpkin orange, adding ridges and leafy green stems for realism. Once dry, stack them carefully, securing with adhesive or dowels if needed for strength. For a more rustic look, mix different sizes so the tower narrows toward the top, echoing the natural curve of stacked pumpkins. Once built, the totem can stand alone as garden art, or it can double as a planter. Some gardeners hollow the top pumpkin and fill it with soil, planting trailing flowers like petunias or nasturtiums that spill beautifully down the sides. At night, placing a solar light at the base makes the totem glow softly, turning it into a lantern-like feature. For small gardens or tiny yards, the pumpkin totem is especially powerful. It takes up little ground space but adds height, creating the illusion of a fuller garden. Placed on a patio, it becomes a playful centerpiece. Along a fence, it breaks the monotony of flat surfaces. What makes this idea shine is its sense of fun. It doesn't demand perfection. The uneven edges and hand-painted brushstrokes only add to its charm. It whispers of creativity born from ordinary things, and it proves that even scraps can be shaped into joy. Standing tall in the backyard, the pumpkin totem reminds us that gardens are not only about plants, but also about imagination rooted in the soil of everyday life.